Alright, hello everybody, we are back, and we are doing the definitive Hades 2 Fear Guide today. A lot of people have been requesting from me a guide on which fear they should take. Of course, with the guide content, please do let me know down in the comments below what you disagree with me about. This is just my opinion and general recommendations to help people out if they feel lost. With everyone's collective opinions coming together in the comment section, maybe I'll even learn something for it myself. I'm 1,500 hours deep and still learning every day. Oh, we should probably get rid of these now. We're not gonna need them for a while. Okay, the plan is to give you what I think to be the best 8, 16, 24, and 32 fear loadouts to help you along with both your testaments and your statues. After that, I will just start to climb the fear from 32 to 62 in an order that I think makes sense for anyone wanting to push beyond becoming the Knights Champion. Okay, we will go over each vow as they become activated and then talk about potential other options you might be more comfortable with. There is plenty of flexibility early on when it comes to the vows, and it really just does come down to preference, what you feel most comfortable managing and playing around. So first up, 1 level on the Vow of Time. You have 9 minutes to fight through each region. A region is a stretch of likely dangerous locations, often with a guardian waiting at the end. Think Erebus, Oceanus, Morning Fields, giving you 9 minutes to clear each full region. Really shouldn't be bad. You can also pause the game to pause the timer to think about your decisions. And there's plenty of pause timer rooms. Any NPC interaction, any shop is paused. And even NPCs like Artemis and Nemesis will help you out by pausing the timer in their rooms as well. If you do feel comfortable under time pressure, you could even think about buffing this up already to 7 minutes per region. Should still be very manageable and will allow you to take fear away from something like the Vow of Menace. Then we have 2 levels into the Vow of Menace. Most foes have 25% chance to be from the next region, if there is one. So while in Erebus, you have a 25% chance to see an enemy from Oceanus. If you're in Tartarus, there will be no enemy upgrades, as that is the final region of a path. So it is disabled after the 3rd region in each biome, which is quite nice as well. It nets you 3 fear alone and is just a 25% chance to fight a bit more difficult of an enemy. Not bad at all. Then we have 2 levels into the Vow of Hubris. After you choose a boon, prime 6 magic for each rarity greater than common. Of course, prime magic is just a reduction to how much magic you can actively use this night. So if you do have a maximum of 90 and you take 1 boon at rare rarity, you will lose 6 of that 90 magic. This is easily counteracted through things like the Persistence Arcana card giving you extra magic, Hecuba the Familiar giving you extra magic, and the Silver Wheel Keepsake giving you extra magic. Last but certainly not least, the Vow of Denial. After you choose a boon, 2 of the unpicked blessings shall not appear again this night. What that means is when you're presented with a boon menu, whatever boon you choose, you will acquire. The other 2 are then removed from the pool, and you cannot see them for the rest of the run. You can play around this with rerolls, making sure that you're never deleting a boon you dislike, and pulling up your codex to see which boons you have and have not deleted at all times. Other potential options to swap around here for 8 fear could also be a level of rivals, if you're comfortable with the Hecate and Polyphemus rival fights respectively. And once again, even another level of rivals. However, at this point in the underworld, this is Rival Sirens, which is a very difficult fight. On the surface though, Rivals Eris really isn't that bad. Very learnable fight, very tame rivals fight compared to some of the others. So definitely an option there if you don't like any of the other fear I've recommended. Okay, we're up to 16 fear now. We have added in the standard second level on the Vow of Time. At this point, if you're stepping up to 16 fear, I really do recommend you get used to playing under time pressure. 7 minutes per region is still plenty for you to work with. You just need to be a little bit faster about clearing out your rooms and finishing off your boss fights. We've also added 1 level to the Vow of Rivals. The Guardian of the first region shall be stronger in various ways. This is going to give you the upgraded fight for both Hecate and Polyphemus. 2 of what I would say the easier, more learnable rivals fights. Definitely still difficult, but for 3 fear, it is a solid early choice to help you get to 16. Then we have also added the Vow of Shadows. All encounters with wardens, which are mini-bosses, contain no fewer than 1 shadow servants. This is only going to affect your mini-boss fights, your wardens fights. You're only going to be fighting 1 warden per region maximum, and for any reason, if you're scared to fight them, you don't have to. You can simply just avoid them, technically negating this fear. It is also good to learn how to fight the mini-bosses with their shadow servant counterparts early on before you dial everything else up, as some of the fights change fundamentally with these shadow servants on. Then we've just added the Vow of Debt to get us to 16. All items that cost gold are now 80% more expensive. Across a run, this is really just going to cost you a boon or 2, which is unfortunate, but at this point, there is no more really free fear. It's all going to affect you. And this, I would say, is one of the lesser evils when it comes to the vows. If for any reason you don't like this setup, there is a few good swaps at this point. Like, once again, adding a second level of rivals and even dropping off debt if you are comfortable with the second region. Oceanus and the Rift of Thessaly bosses, Eris and the Sirens respectively, in their rivals fights. You could also press the time much harder, netting you another 3 fear, but bringing your region clock all the way down to 5 minutes, which definitely can be difficult. But if it's something you're comfortable with, it is essentially 3 free fear. Okay, 24 fear now. We still have 2 levels on the Vow of Time. However, if you are comfortable enough with the 3rd level, go ahead and take that and drop the Vow of Frenzy we have added. All foes are 20% faster. This is going to affect your bosses as well, so be careful, but it is a lot of fear, and fear you're gonna want to get used to compared to some of these other options. So if you can do Timer 3, you can drop Frenzy, but if you're not comfortable on Timer 3, I would recommend Frenzy 1, trading 20% enemy attack speed for an extra 2 minutes per region. We're on Rivals 2 here, so the first 2 Guardians in each region are going to be in their upgraded states. However, once you complete them, no matter how many resources you lose, you should be able to piece things back together, heal up, and win your run on the then downgraded other 2 bosses you end up fighting. And then, of course, 2 levels on the Vow of Scars. Any healing effects are now 50% effective. You should still be able to heal fully under this. Healing effects are quite strong, and even at 50%, still feel fantastic. You just have to be careful about the damage you are taking now. And then everything else just stays the same from what we had on 16. Other options you could try on 24 Fear, of course we already mentioned level 3 on the Vow of Time. If you're comfortable with enemy attack speed, an extra level on the Vow of Frenzy isn't going to hurt. Or even an extra level on the Vow of Arrivals if that's something you think you can take on. Netting you each 3 fear respectively. Quite strong, allowing you to drop something else completely, like the Vow of Scars. At this point, depending heavily on your preference and how you feel about each different vow, there's lots of different pathways you could get into 32 Fear, so let's talk about them here. First of all, it's going to completely depend on how comfortable you are against the Vow of Time. If you're looking to play 32 Fear, I heavily recommend getting used to Timer 3 because it allows you to disable a lot of other nasty vows that are really going to hurt you compared to a bit of a stricter timer. We do not want to enable Scars 3 for a very long time because it'll completely disable all healing effects, so we're going to set that at 50%. The Standard Debt, Menace, Shadow, Hubris, and Denial. Very easy fare that you can steal. You're never really going to want to turn off. I have put on Rivals 3. Once again, much like Timer 3, I do think if your goal is to climb the Fear ladder, to ascend to the Fear heavens, you should start learning the Rivals boss fights. This is 3 Fear, just for one upgraded boss. Cerberus, an easier end Rivals boss, sometimes, although he can decide to kill you if he does some nasty patterns. And then the Heroes is a super difficult one, but you gotta learn them at some point if you want to push the Fear. However, I would understand if you didn't want to do them quite yet, and if you don't, you have plenty of other options. Right now, we have 1 level of Frenzy enabled, so all foes have that 20% attack speed, not too bad. This is another vow you're really gonna want to learn well if you plan on pushing that Fear. Another 20% attack speed for all foes, making it 40% total, netting you that other 3 Fear if you want to disable Vow of Rivals 3 or Timer 3. Is definitely an option. And then we have enabled 1 level to the Vow of Fangs. Most foes with armor also have 1 random perk. So any enemies you encounter while you clear rooms that have armor will have 1 perk associated with them that can do different things, like drain your magic, deal extra damage, an enemy can be bigger sized, it can put roots on the ground, etc., etc. This can be a little bit difficult to learn because you need to start recognizing what each symbol over an armored enemy is going to do and play around that. However, enabling just 1 at a time stops the Vow of Fangs from creating some really nasty combos that can generate incredibly difficult armored enemies, like teleporting Orbital, Numbskulls and Tartarus, or even Orbital extra damage Numbskulls, where the extra damage not only applies to their attacks, but the orbital around them. Trust me, you don't want to run into that one. However, just 1 Vow of Fangs really isn't bad, and of course it's only on regular enemies with armor, so you won't see it too much, and it does net you 2 Fear. You can also play fully into the Vow of Fangs, and enable that 2nd perk if you feel like you want to learn it now, if you feel like you are ready. An option I personally like earlier on, but I know a lot of people hate this one, is the Vow of Return. Most slain foes have a 0, 25, and 50% chance to become a Revenant. After 5 seconds, a Revenant becomes the foe that it spawned from, unless you collect it first. Those are the small green orbs you might see in my videos when I kill an enemy and then run and collect. If you don't collect that, the enemy's going to respawn. It forces you to think a lot more about your overall movement and positioning, because you have to not only clear the room in a safe manner, but also do so while picking up all of your Revenants, ideally. After 32 Fear is when things start to get really scary. I wouldn't say there's any free Fear left, and everything is just about practicing that Fear option and learning it, progressing slowly over time, looking for a 3 to 5 Fear personal best, and then doing so again, until eventually everything's enabled. Once again, a ton of preference here for what you do and do not like, but I would say some of the early Fear you should look to enable if your goal is to really push that Fear and get some big wins would be Rivals 4 the final bosses, Typhon and Kronos, in their Rivals format. Yes, incredibly difficult. Yes, incredibly scary. Also incredibly rewarding to beat. And you want to learn this fight before you disable your healing, before you add 100% enemy damage, before you add 30% extra HP to the Rivals bosses. Learn them early, get practice. When they're at their weakest form of Rivals 4, you will thank me later. After that, I would say jump up to Frenzy 2 at this point. If you're 36 fear deep, now's the time to practice with enemies at their highest attack speed, creating the most projectiles, throwing out the most patterns. Also, affecting bosses, of course. This is the true form of a boss. Full attack speed, full Rivals. However, they don't have a crazy amount of HP, so you're not going to have to continually dodge extra patterns, and they're not dealing 100% damage. So, getting hit by them is not going to feel so punishing. After this, I would go ahead and pick up that second level on the Vow of Fangs to practice against the armored enemies that do spawn with this vow, with the combos they can create. All of these fears have a big knowledge check, a big learning check, but once again, it's really good to put the time in early before you enable everything else on top of this stuff and learn how you can interact, play around, and defeat these very specific vows. Then, whether you like it or not, it is time for the Vow of Return. At this point, it is one of the easier fears left on the board. If it wasn't for the introduction of the Rivals fights, I probably would have Grit on by now. However, giving 30% extra HP to some of the more dangerous Rivals fights, Typhon, Kronos, Sirens, the heroes being Prometheus and Heracles, scares me a lot more than picking up a couple green orbs these days. So we'll add 2 levels of this, making it so slain foes do have that 50% chance to become a Revenant, getting you up to 44. The next 2 fear I recommend is the Vow of Wards. All foes have 0, 1, and 2 barriers. A barrier is going to negate the next instance of damage, even if it would have been an awful lot. Meaning whether you deal 1 or 1 million damage to an enemy, if they have a barrier, it will be blocked by said barrier, and that barrier will then break, forcing you to build into something that is good at barrier breaking, especially if you're using a very slow attacking weapon. Hera's Hitch effect, and of course, the monster of all barrier breakers, Zeus's Static Shock, that chain lightning bouncing around basically destroys all barriers in a room before they're ever to become an issue, is all ways you're going to want to look to build into when enabling the Vow of Wards. Now it's time to enable the Vow of Forfeit. The first boon in each region will become an onion instead. This means that you have to look to break your onion early so that you can start to get actual boons, and this means across a run you are going to have to play and win with 4 less boons, which can mean quite a lot. If you've ever finished a run with the last boon, or the last 4 boons being a legendary or a duo boon, or some sort of safety or damage piece that you really felt like completed your run, you would no longer have that. And it's the first boon of each region. So starting off in Erebus, you're going to have to play out your first couple rooms, maybe even up to your shop or mini-boss, without a boon, which can be quite scary, especially when you already have 49 fear enabled. But it's something you're going to want to learn. It's something you're going to want to learn to play around and learn to deal with those early rooms without many boons. Learn to fight through a run with less overall boons. Learn to look to break that onion and start acquiring actual damage or survivability boons to help you win those runs. Now, I would say there's no real way around it. We're going to have to attack the Vow of Grit. All foes have 0%, 10%, 20%, and 30% more HP, netting us another 3 fear. This is all foes, which means it's going to apply to your rivals' bosses, as well as every single enemy in every single room. However, your options at this point are to either do that, Disable healing, have to fight 60% more enemies, enemies deal 100% more damage, or starting to disable your Arcana cards. It's all about the lesser of evils at this point. Everything sucks to put on. You don't really want to use any of it. But if you want to continue to climb, you have to choose something. And I'd have to recommend Grit. I don't think it's so bad as the rest. Before Rivals, I would say this one was rather nice, rather free, because the bosses weren't too scary. But the idea of giving Rivals Chronos, or Rivals Typhon, 30% bonus HP brings shivers down my spine. But you have to do it. You have to learn it. It will teach you what is really effective damage, good bang for your buck at this point. Between Onion and enemies being much tankier, you'll really start to learn what is worth it and what is not when it comes to shredding enemies. This one is definitely heavily up for debate, and I don't even know what the correct choice is. I'm going between Vow of Hordes. Most encounters have 0%, 20%, 40%, and 60% more foes. And Vow of Pain. All foes deal 0%, 20%, 60%, and 100% more damage. The issue is, with the Vow of Pain, of course you're giving this to the Rivals bosses. Once again, very terrifying. However, Hordes does exactly one thing, and that's put a ton of pressure on you to clear very fast under the Vow of Time. You have to now complete the same strict timer you were completing before, while fighting up to 60% more enemies. Very preference-based. You can either have a lot tougher room clear and then more forgiving bossing, or you can have much more difficult bossing, but much faster and easier overall room clear. Personally, if I had to choose, I would rather play with Hordes on and the Rivals bosses hurting me less than the opposite. However, I could totally see an argument to play Pain 3, Horde 0, or even just balance them both, go one at a time, build them up slowly. Honestly, at this point, no matter which one you take, I would recommend taking the other one next. So if you went all Hordes, grab Pain now. If you went all Pain, grab Hordes now. If you did a split, finish them both off. They should both be enabled, leaving us at 60 Fear, with just the Vow of Void and the Vow of Scars not at maximum. I used to say throw the Vow of Scars at maximum very early on. However, with the introduction of Strength, I think up to this point, for how many people really love that card, and the fact that the Wayward Son is a lot easier to get into and still have a good Arcana setup with, and all the ways to heal in the game, as well as all the ways to really stack up your max HP, having the most effective Strength build possible, leaving Scars all the way to the end seems like a very good decision in my eyes now. At this point, and only at this point, you would probably pivot over to full Scars, Death Defiances, looking for Athena's Renewed Faith, playing Engraved Pin, the whole nine. There comes a lot of knowledge with that, learning how to reset the pin properly, forgetting about any and all healing effects in the game, learning what does work through the full Vow of Scars, like the aspect of Nergal, which is an intended healing effect all the way through, as it's aspect based, and what doesn't, like most things in the game now. This would be your 60-second Fear, and it once again completely changes how you're going to play the game, so that's why I would say leave it all the way till last. Surprised I'm saying it, but if I had my time back and I was climbing the Fear leaderboards one at a time for the first time, I think it is what I would recommend. However, this is also a training wheel in a way, so if you wanted to enable Scars 3 early on and learn how to play around that, it's definitely not a bad idea. I have to say, I do find healing effects fun. and it is a core mechanic in the game, and playing with them is a great time. And it's one of the vows that really doesn't feel good, because it completely disables a lot of cool boons even. So from that standpoint, I really do like the idea of leaving scars till last. And then of course it's the Vow of Void. You have access to 100%, 60%, 40%, 20%, and 0% of your grasp for your Arcana. Disabling all your cards. At 0%, you disable all your cards. At just 20%, you can play Strength, giving yourself 20% global damage, 40% damage resistance, as well as Persistence for the extra 40 HP and 40 magic. And since you only have 2 cards enabled, you are going to be able to have Judgment enabled. What that's going to do is give you 5 cards after clearing each boss. If you're going to use the Vow of Void, I would honestly recommend bringing it all the way up to 3 levels, stealing all the fear from that, which is going to be 3, and just doing a Persistence Strength start with a Judgment focused run. If you're going to enable it all, I question your sanity. This is the least fun vow in the entire game for me. I hate disabling my Arcana cards. They're a ton of fun to use. They transform your gameplay, and they make things have a lot more depth, a great feel, and just overall more fun. Which is why it's the last vow I ever recommend anyone to enable. If you're going to bother to enable 1 level, you might as well just send it and go for 3. It's extra fear, you get to do cool Judgment runs, you still get to start Strength and Persistence. It feels strong. It's a very unique way to play the game. Otherwise, don't turn it on. And if you're going to turn it on all the way, what are you doing? Alright, that is going to complete our fear guide for today. Please do let me know down in the comments below how you feel about each one of my different recommendations and opinions when it comes to the different vows in Hades 2. Let me know what you would do differently as you ascend the fear ladder. And I do hope this helps you get new fear PBs. Finish your testaments, acquire your statues. Thank you all for watching and supporting the channel. If you did enjoy this video or learn something from this video, please do give it a like. It really does help me out a lot. And if you want to keep up with more of my Hades 2 content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again for watching. Okay, bye. And a massive thank you to my members for supporting the channel. John Costello, Zuko's Honor, Horia Dragomir, Avocado Anna, Gay UD, Meist Jr., Shag Daddy, Vetatoid, Rob Wallace, Katarina V, Seneca, Ticolo, Hideki 504, Andy Fu, Saint Naive, But What About the Hostages, Night Crawler, David Hyman, Paul, Shoshin, Nathan, Mininet, Andrew Reddick, Quib, and Fish Nabubu.